Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Amber Valley series. There are 35 parishes in this beautiful slice of eastern Derbyshire. Here's one for your viewing pleasure. Hello folks, welcome back to Derbyshire, and here we're in a brand new district. Welcome to Amber Valley for the very first time. I'm standing in the hamlet of Morewood Moor, and here in Morewood Moor there's a hotel called the White Hart Inn, and I actually need to be here today because you might just be able to see in the middle distance there there's some people. One of those people is Nikki, who's currently dressed up all in her finery because there's a wedding going on at that hotel today, which Nikki is attending and I'm not, so I'm using this opportunity to start Amber Valley off. Welcome to the parish of South Wingfield. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Amber Valley, folks, and this is the parish of South Wingfield. If that name sounds familiar, it's because we already covered North Wingfield some time ago. You'll recall North Wingfield is in North East Derbyshire, but the two places are not that far apart. Their names are both formed from winn, meaning pasture, and feld, meaning open land. An ex-mining village, South Wingfield's most famous landmark is Wingfield Manor, which was once used, amongst other things, to detain Mary Queen of Scots. The village is about 6 miles away from the town of Matlock, and it shares a border with Wessington at Manor Road. As such, the River Amber runs through the parish. The centre of the village is known as the marketplace, where Manor Road, Church Lane, Inns Lane and High Road all meet. Its church is a way out of the village towards Oakerthorpe, and the boundaries extend to cover that as well as the hamlet of Morewood Moor. Both places feature some rather interesting pubs. All of this is encased within some more fabulous Derbyshire countryside, and it's not flat. In fact, some of these hills are a little bit on the steep side. Nonetheless, this was still a very enjoyable walk. Let's go, folks. Let's kick off Amber Valley. We begin our trip through South Wingfield at the White Hart Inn at Morewood Moor. Not a bad place for a function locally, just ask the wife. What we're doing here is following the narrow, twisty but generally flat Inns Lane from Morewood Moor into South Wingfield village. Inns Lane is bordered by many crofts that made up the original settlement of the village. Their boundaries still make up dwelling boundaries today. They also still determine the boundaries of the traditional established village and that of the South Wingfield Conservation Area. Inns Lane becomes much more built up as we approach the village. Inns Lane eventually runs into the marketplace, which features a paved area known as Jackson's Folly, named after the parish council member who instigated its building. We'll be walking through that shortly. Look to the left for the village surgery. Okay, so the main walk will begin and end here, where Birches Lane, which is this road behind me, meets Wessington Lane, which is this road right here. Now, Wessington should sound familiar to you, as well as North Wingfield, because that is literally just over the district boundary. And you remember Wessington from when we did that last year. First job is a parish notice board, because there's one here at this little village green. So we'll put a card on that. And then we're heading south down into the village centre towards the marketplace. This one's got quite a lot of things to talk about, most notably the road itself when we get close to the marketplace, because as I discovered as I drove into this earlier, there's a rather unique feature which I need to catch. There's lots here, so I'll shut up rambling. Let's go. To begin proceedings in the village, the parish notice board gets its TVI card. If you're new here, this is how I mark that I've visited a place. High Road will take us down into the village centre. On the way, we pass the South Wingfield Social Club, which hosts regular live music on Friday nights. It's right next to the village's bowling green. Historically, this was an important leisure facility for the plethora of mining families in South Wingfield. Soon after, we come to this magnificent local landmark, the Rocks, a high wall which overlooks Church Lane, which in the early 1800s was realigned. Its route was levelled and made to pass between a retaining wall, which is lined with studs to hold back the rocks behind. And this is where you can pick up a bus or two. The services you need to South Wingfield are the 140 and 150, both of which run to Alfreton. Okay, so here we are in the marketplace in front of an old shop that says Cadbury's Cocoa and Cadbury's Chocolate in that window. Clearly doesn't sell that anymore. It's very much a disused shop now. So if we just pan the camera around, we've got Inns Lane on the right, and in front of us we've got the Christmas tree and the War Memorial. Let's check those out next. At Manor Road's intersection with Inns Lane, you'll find the War Memorial. This is a wall-mounted oblong granite tablet, which is currently facing the Christmas tree. Let's take a walk down Manor Road. I had to dig for this one. This abandoned building used to be a Pentecostal church, believe it or not. Next is a Zion Methodist church, an ornate structure that was erected in 1862. It's since been extended and is still used as a place of worship. Around the back of the church is its associated cemetery, the Hambleton Memorial Garden of Rest, dated 1952 according to its gates. It sits on a steep hillside with some absolutely amazing views into the Amber Valley. The River Amber is down there somewhere, folks. Next, the Old Yew Tree Inn, one of two in South Wingfield. According to WhatPub, this is one of the most haunted pubs in Britain. So at the bottom of Manor Road, the road starts to fall sharply downhill, and you get a great view of the valley below in the distance there, as well as some nice looking cottages. But also down here, there's Wingfield Manor. Now, this is not open to the public, but I can still get really close to it by way of a bridleway, and that bridleway is right here. Let's go and check it out. Via a bridleway which passes some lovely little waterfalls, like this one right here, we can sort of get a look at Wingfield Manor, which is in ruins. It meant climbing a steep hill to get these shots, but we're on a public right-of-way, so this is perfectly legal. The house is not open to the public, and it's in the care of English Heritage. Work began on the manor in 1441. It was to be built for Sir Ralph Cromwell, who was treasurer to Henry VI. However, it wasn't completed until after his death. John Talbot, the second Earl of Shrewsbury, then bought the property. His family maintained it for nearly 200 years. In the late 1500s, Mary Queen of Scots was held prisoner here by the 6th Earl of Shrewsbury, the husband of Bess of Hardwicke. It's been deserted since 1770. This was tough to get to, but there was at least one upside to climbing the hill. Look at this for a spectacular view. Tell you what, it's a long way up this hill, it's quite steep, but it's worth it because obviously you can see not just Wingfield Manor, but also a fantastic view the other way into the valley below. It's absolutely stunning. I'm so glad the weather is good enough to actually see that today. Right, now to get back down off this hill and head for Park Avenue and Church Lane. The views continue as we make our way along another footpath now, which passes the village allotments. One for the many fans out there. Now we're re-entering civilization via Parks Avenue, a much newer part of South Wingfield, with houses likely built within the last 60 to 80 years. Parks Avenue leads to Church Lane, and almost opposite its end is Taylor's, one of the area's leading suppliers of corn, gardening and pet products. They were established in the early 1900s, and their current premises is the old corn store for a fabulous old 3-storey corn mill next door. The mill stands on the River Amber. It's been a while since we saw this, and it was powered by a large, low-breast water wheel, some 9 feet wide. Probably dating from the late 18th century, it used the power of the amber to produce provender, dry food for domestic animals, all the way up to 1990. Now, even though the church is literally just behind those trees over there, that is going to be filmed later. For the purposes of my walking route, I'm turning around here and heading back up Church Lane. But just because the church is going to be filmed later doesn't mean I can't do a little bit of trickery with editing. So you're going to see future Andy in a few moments time, because the church is coming at you next. So here we have the Grade 2 listed Church of All Saints, which, like the mill, also lies beside the River Amber between South Wingfield and Oakerthorpe. There's been a church on this site for over 1,000 years, and it probably began its life as a wooden building built in Saxon times. Historical records indicate that there was a stone-built church here in 1269, already dedicated to All Saints. In 1441, Ralph Cromwell rebuilt the square tower and body of the church. Further rebuilding took place in the 19th century on at least 3 occasions. There are some fascinating tales involving this church, including that of Anne Kendall. I haven't got time for that in this video, but that's a story well worth looking up. Next door, we have the Church Hall. And over the road from both buildings is Home Lane, the base of South Wingfield's cricket club, who were founded in 1884. Now, as well as the cricket club, also running close to the church and the church hall, there's a railway line. And you can see the railway bridge there. Now that's carrying the Derby to Leeds line, and if that sounds familiar, that's because we've talked about it before in North East Derbyshire. Well, it runs through South Wingfield Parish, and there used to be a railway station here, but it's no longer used. Let's go and have a look at it, because it's quite a notable one. Wingfield railway station served both South Wingfield and Oakerthorpe between 1840 and 1967. Although now closed, the station building still stands. It was built by the North Midland Railway on its line between Derby and Leeds, close to Home Lane. You can access it by way of a public footpath these days. It was built by Francis Thompson, who designed 13 stations on the North Midland Railway, and it's the only one surviving today exactly as it was built. The station has been on Historic England's Heritage at Risk register for some years as being in a very bad state. Luckily though, it'll soon not be. In 2019, the Derbyshire Historic Buildings Trust announced a restoration of the building following the receipt of lottery funding to do so. The line, of course, is still in use. A passing train proved that all right. Wouldn't it be fantastic to see this historic station brought back to life? Okay, we're done in this area now, so it's back to the main walk. And you rejoin me here where we left off a few moments ago, alongside the River Amber. Now, to complete the walking route, I just need to walk up Church Lane, but this is not going to be easy because it's a very steep hill. I'm not looking forward to this. There's a few more landmarks both on and just off Church Lane. Down a ginnel on the right, for example, is the parish room, complete with the defib machine. A bit further up the hill we find the village school. This was built in 1875 and then rebuilt in 1912 for a maximum capacity of 210 children. Then we have the other village pub, the Bluebell, which features a stylish modern restaurant which serves food 5 days a week. After that, Church Lane then starts to rise much more steeply as we head back towards the rocks. This is not easy on the legs, folks, trust me on that. After the uphill slog, here we are finally at the awe-inspiring bend where Church Lane turns sharply through the rocks to join with Manor Road at the marketplace. And on the walk back up to High Road I spotted this, a simple stone which says SW2000. I would imagine this was placed here for the millennium. Okay, that's pretty much the entire route round South Wingfield. I can't tell you how imposing that is, by the way. You know, when you stood right next to it, next to the wall, and how high it is, it's ridiculous. If I've got anyone watching me from Bradford, it reminds me of the walls of Jericho. If you're not quite sure where they are in Bradford, well, you'll soon find out. That's all I'm going to say to that. But yeah, very similar. So now I'm going to hop into the car after walking back up to it, and we're going to take a drive to Oakerthorpe, which is a small village to the, well, hamlet to the east of South Wingfield. So this next section is a simple drive around the northern areas of South Wingfield before heading towards Oakerthorpe away to the village's east. Although not quite built in the usual model village way, these were originally built as miners' houses. South Wingfield, of course, has a mining history. In much the same way, so does Oakerthorpe. Both settlements were inhabited by coal miners, lots of them, and there were 5 collieries locally. All 5 were located along Oakerthorpe Brook. These were Waterloo, Manby Hill, Oakerthorpe, Highfield and Wingfield Manor. At least one of them was linked by rail to a tramway to the east. There are tramway rails which run towards Alfreton Golf Club, also within the parish boundaries. Just before we go to Oakerthorpe, I made a stop here outside another religious building, Birches Lane Baptist Chapel, which was built in 1863. So now we're in Oakerthorpe, which was known in ancient times as Oakerthorpe. In the centre of the village is the Peacock Inn, very important to local history. In fact, you may already know why. I've already made a Tales from the Village Green episode about this pub, and it's linked below. Go check that out. The pub is reputed to be the oldest in Derbyshire. It was even mentioned in the Domesday Book, where it was called Ufton Barnsand. As you head down the hill towards a second pub, you'll encounter this crossroads, known locally as 4 Lane Ends, and it's busy. This is one popular local way to reach the M1 because the A615 links traffic to the A61 and the A38, the latter of which crosses the motorway at junction 28. The second pub is the Butcher's Arms, which stands right on the crossroads opposite Home Lane, which, if followed of course, takes you back into South Wingfield. So as well as the Peacock and the Butcher's Arms, there used to be a third pub here in Oakerthorpe as well. and it's further down this road to the south, or used to be. It doesn't exist anymore, it's been demolished. It was called the Anchor, and it's now a housing estate. So there used to be 3, now there's only 2 here. Now, to finish this episode off, we're heading towards a cemetery, which on the map looks like it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's actually got a really fascinating story behind it. Let's go and find that to finish this off. This is Wingfield Park, a small hamlet also within South Wingfield's boundaries. It doesn't have much, but one thing it does is the Smith Memorial Hall and Cemetery. This is on Colburn Hill off Lynham Road above a lace thread spinning mill. It was a private cemetery which belonged to the Wingfield Park Hall estate. The hall and the adjoining estate, which extended as far as Wingfield Park, was purchased from the Wheatcroft family in 1872 by Francis Nicholas Smith. Smith was quite the man. From 1860 until his death in 1927, he was a Justice of the Peace and had been High Sheriff of Derbyshire in 1907. From 1868 to 1888, he was a partner in Samuel Smith & Company, a firm of bankers, and was also chairman of the directors of Wingfield Manor Colliery. The cemetery contains the grave of his only son, Captain Bernard Ridley Winthrop Smith, who was killed in 1914 during the First World War. There you go, folks. That's been the parish of South Wingfield. I promised you there was a lot here, and boy is there ever. That's taken me about 2.5 hours to get round everything. The walk itself only took just over an hour. That shows you how much running around I've had to do around Amber Valley. 1 down and 34 to go, if my memory serves me rightly. So yeah, that's the district of Amber Valley begun, and it will be a proper series later on this year once North East Lincolnshire has finished. But for now, this has been the parish of South Wingfield, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.